The question was, how do you know that he is being honest? And she said, well, you just know. What? That's not an answer.
Based on your spirituality, for example, how do you know when someone says Trump's lying about the election in 2020, saying it was stolen and it wasn't? How do you know that he is telling the truth based on your interpretation when it comes to worldly things such as that?
Well, I feel I know the man. I've watched him. I went to his rallies. When I go to all these rallies, I see how I feel when I leave there. It's almost like something comes over upon you. It's like you can't explain Jesus. Nobody could explain Jesus. We can only go from the word. No, we all are sinners. I'm a sinner. You're a sinner. Trump is a sinner. We all are sinners and we sin. But grace is what saves us.
So I don't know if y'all already saw me shaking my head, but this is the cringe.
Explain yourself.
I could definitely tell that, you know, this is, it seems to me that people who talk like this about, it doesn't even have to be Trump specifically, but just, it seems like you've only ever had that experience of, you know, something greater than yourself inside a church. And so you go to a rally and, you know, you have the same experience that you have when you go to a concert and, you know, everybody's in unison and you're on the same wavelength and all that stuff. Shout out to ZT Dan. Welcome to the party. Big shout out to Devon.
Oh, that's I know ZD. That's Tina. How you doing, Tina?
Welcome, Tina. But yeah, I think that yeah, like I'm watching folks saying nobody can explain Jesus. So why do you believe in him? And she would have the same exact answer as to Trump. Like she didn't actually give any. The question was, how do you know that he is being honest? And she said, well, you just know. What? That's not an answer. And so then again, when we're talking about the idea of does this permeate through the politics, or is this more of a type of person? I don't think that this comes from the policies that Donald Trump has. I think this comes from the type of person that you are. You're a church-going person. This is what you associate as something spiritual and good, and then you feel it as well in the Trump rally. So then to these type of people, it doesn't matter if he's lying. They're just cool with it because, well, I got that funny feeling. You know what I mean?
Or it's not that he's lying and like it was like Photoshop or it was AI or something like that or something crazy, or he lied for like this, you know, reason. It's just I've interacted with a lot of people who like are like more your speed, like they're very reasonable about it. And then every time I interact with people who are of the camp where it's like Trump came from God and like Jesus sent him and he's like the imperfect vessel for like a perfect message or whatever, it gets to the point where the conversation, like it hits a brick wall because there's always going to be that spiritual realm that you then have to sort of like, you can't really break them out of that if they're so devout. And even if you tried, that would open up an entirely different conversation. But yeah, it's interesting, man.
Yeah. And so, again, I would say, unfortunately, I think this is a much larger percentage of, you know, we were talking about percentages of Trump supporters who think about, Biden won through fraud. I would say the percentage of people who think like this in on the MAGA side are way, way higher up there. And that's, you know, a big part of, you know, what I do as an atheist who has more culturally conservative views, I guess you would say, that I, you know, try to bridge that gap and be like, all right, well, if there's enough for Trump to be your guy, then you have to be able to understand why. As Harley's saying here, she's like, I have no idea what she just said. And like, that's good for the general MAGA crowd that you're just following blindly. But that doesn't help America to be, you know, just blindly following anybody. So this, again, is something that, unfortunately, I do think is a much bigger part of the Trump camp. And that's, you know, a big part of what I do as somebody who would technically be in that camp, is try to be like, don't do this. Don't be like them. And before we dive back in,
just shout out to Josh, a hometown friend of mine.
Hey, shout out to Josh
Oh.
Owens. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Perfect comment too. Saying I was going to say the same thing about going to concerts and feeling the Holy Spirit in church. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just something.
I try to like I recently, because I was raised religious and my parents are still very religious, but I went to church with my mom recently, and like with black church, it's like it's just all over the place, bro. It's like, you know, there's music everywhere, and it's like the way that they're preaching to you, it appeals to you in a sense where if you don't have like a core like or if you don't have like sort of like a mind to sort of think that there could be other reasons, you're completely compelled and you think this is what it is, it's the Holy Spirit, that's what it is. But whenever I go, I always compare it to a concert where it's like there's people around you, there's this really good feeling that's surging into everybody, like it's just this momentum of like feeling and emotion, everything. It's a rush, and that's kind of what that is. And I feel like a lot of like populists, for me personally, I feel like Trump is in that camp where there's a certain momentum and there's just something about the way that he delivers certain messages that are different from other things. A lot of people say when they go to his rallies, like they can feel it, like this woman saying, and it's simply just that.
Well, and towards the end of a lot of his speeches anymore, he'll also begin playing some, emotionally moving,
The dramatic string music.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I can't do without you guys.
Yeah.
What-
Playing the tiny
interesting.
violin music, bro. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
What-
Interesting.
What you just said, Devon, I think that really goes with what you said earlier that I wanted to comment on was the values that are Republicans push, like their ideas. Like we're talking about how Democrats have the victim mentality, and like a lot of people that go for that victim mentality, and a lot of people that are on the right side with the church, they like to have this idea that all of their problems were caused because like, oh, I was born with sin on the religious side, but on the victimhood side, it's more like, oh, I've been oppressed and I'm a victim, and that's why my life is so bad. And I think it's on the same group they're looking for the same thing. They're looking for something to blame their problems on in a way.
Well,
And
if I
even
could
now,
just
like-
touch on that, when it comes to a lot of that victim mentality on the left, well, I think some of it is poorly placed and maybe not very well defined. I think we could probably agree that a lot of advantages and disadvantages within the society we live in are based on your access to capital, and that's something that's in a lot of ways based on the kind of family that you were raised in, right?
But
Absolutely.
wouldn't you say the same thing about like like some people are born greedy, or some people are born lustful, and it's like something like that's not may not think that religiously, like, but these are things that people do feel, and you're born that way, and some people can't control them. That doesn't mean like that doesn't have the same effect, Like I'd say it means the same thing. Like when you're born with something that you may not have control over, but you still have to fight those urges and stuff like that and fight through it to get ahead in life.
And this kind of reminds me of like, I don't know if like you're a Sam Harris fan, but it reminds me of sort of like his free will argument in a sense.
Who is it?
Sam Harris. He's
yeah. Well, I used to be.
There you go. Yeah. I know a lot of people on the right don't really like
Yep.
him right now, but yeah, it reminds me of that. But at the same time, I feel like when we talk about like the whole like the disadvantages within society, the thing about it is that we have a mechanism to sort of fix that. When you're talking about the greed and lust thing, there's mechanisms for that too, and that's also on that person to sort of like figure that out and get through that however they can. I still like it's still just something that I don't know, it's something that I think is still workable on both sides, and like to just write it off as like, oh, like one thing is like, oh, it's because they were born this way and whatever. I just feel like they're kind of two different things. One requires more of like a system in order to sort of fix it, and one just requires somebody's like personal will or just certain resources around them to fix it. But yeah,
Well, and there are things that you can do within society to try to address some of those what some would call personal shortfalls, right? So think in terms of like addiction, right? Especially to really detrimental substances, things like heroin. While there may be certain parts of your personality that lead someone to using something like that and truly screwing up their life, There are other things like economic despair that also lead people to wanting to use substances like that, something to take the edge off of existence, right? And so
That was 5 years of my life.
What you're saying, Dion, about how there needs to be, so like for the victimhood, there needs to be things in place to stop the victimization. But there are
not. I wouldn't say the victimization. I would say more to David's point that there are these disadvantages that exist, and there needs to be sort of like, we can't just like, I feel like putting it in the same box as like, oh, somebody who's greedy and whatnot. Like, you know, we have a mechanism in order to address that as a whole. So yeah.
So I was, you know, before when you were saying one side seems to be more like you need the systems to fix, and one side is more easily that you can have the tools to fix it yourself. Is that kind of what you were saying?
I feel
and
like,
again, if we're just simplifying things to like Trump camp and Biden camp.
Yeah, it's all good. I think what I'm trying to say is that at least in some of the examples that Melted Mind brought up, especially when he was talking about like greed and whatnot and like how you were born and everything, I just feel like if we're talking about somebody being disadvantaged because they were born a certain way, I feel like it just requires a completely different mechanism, and one that requires more than just that one person being able to go out and seek it and fix it for themselves, in a sense where like if you're greedy, that's something that you gotta sort of like, not just alone you can work out, but it probably requires less of a system to fix your own greed.
But there are these huge systems in place. Like there's crimes against like having monopolies on companies and stuff like that, and overwhelming, and there's like crimes on lust and stuff like that. There's already these things in place that like stop like this, and it's yet the things still happen. That's like what I'm like. So I feel
let's use a specific example. So on one side we have being greedy. That's something that you can you know, fix by, you know, some very basic therapy, even without that, you know, just being aware of it and reading about, you know, speaking of Sam Harris, mindfulness and stuff like that. You can fix that. You don't need a some type of infrastructure to fix that. And so let's just pick you know, something specific that you're talking about that would need a system to address it.
That would or wouldn't?
Something that would need a system.
Okay. Were you talking to Melted Mind or me?
To you, since you're, I'm trying to get an understanding of the actual comparison that we're making here. So we have greed on one side that can be fixed more easily, and then we have X on the other side that needs a system. What would that be?
It was mainly branching off of David's point about some people just being economically disadvantaged from the start. A lot of the times that's going to hold that person back, unless they're one of those like rare exceptions that are able to sort of get out of it with some sort of internal work. You have a lot more working against you if you're born into that situation. And if there's a lot more in society working against you, then it makes sense for reforms in society to be able to change so people aren't born into that. Being greedy isn't something that I guess requires that much in order to get through.
Okay. I definitely, you know, I think if if we were to get into the weeds, which again is not the purpose of this particular stream, I think if we were going to get into the weeds, then we would probably all agree that obviously some people are born in better positions and some people are born in worse positions. But I have a feeling we would disagree on, you know, the minutia there. But I definitely agree with what you're saying here. So M169 earlier said, I have issues with the Trump worshippers. It's not healthy, and I've noticed more so called conservative Christians, so-called conservative Christians doing it when they should know better based on the tenets of their faith. And I mean, this is exactly. I think there's a lot of people in, again, the broad Trump camp that we're talking about that can see, like, bro, yeah, I agree that I want Trump to be the president, but like, you're going way too far, and you're over here talking about how the lefties are in a cult. Meanwhile, you're dressed like this, talking about well, I just know because I just know. It's like no dogma. That is the problem with either side, is that you have these axiomatic beliefs that cannot be questioned. And to who's to sorry, I forget who said it.
M169.
Yeah, oh yes, thank you. To M169's point, if you already have a dogma in religion, then you definitely shouldn't be having false idols. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed that clip, check out the full live stream link in the bio and catch me live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. See you there.